Hello there everyone and welcome back. It's Carol here with another Motivate video. I showed this journal for inspiration last Friday and I used the Japanese binding system on it. Now I said that I wasn't going to show it in that particular video, and that's because I want to show it in this video. So the reason why it's come under Motivate is that I want you to get to use some of your graphic 45 papers. So here's one I made earlier using the graphic 45. Now the reason why I'm using it is on another group other than mine, I saw a lady posting up about how can I use my graphic 45 papers in a junk journal. So this is one way in which you can use it. So I've used the pages for the cover, and then I've used my food colour dyed paper inside, and also this paper which I've showed in another video, how I used a wallpaper and some sprays to create this decorative pattern on the paper. So that's actually a better image, isn't it, for you to see? So I used that. So I've put a few pages in there, and as I say, I used one of the pages for the cover and one for the back cover. All right, so it was just to show you that you can still use your graphic 45 papers. Now this paper was from the Nature Notebook collection. Alright, so I used 2 pages from that, and then I used other elements within the paper pack to decorate it up. I'm going to use 2 pieces of paper from this pack again, so I'm going to use these 2 pieces. Now one of the issues that we all have with our graphic 45 papers is that they're so lovely, but they're lovely on the front and the back, and you get to a point where it's like, I don't want to use them because I don't want to stick this paper down onto a background, because then I lose the inside or the other side of the paper as well. So at least making it into the cover, then you can see both sides of the paper. So I'm going to go off and go and trim these little header notes off and make sure that they're 8 inches square, and I'll see you back here in a second. Now whilst I'm using the whole sheet for this particular book, the card itself or the paper is quite a nice sturdy paper, but it's not massively sturdy in terms of it being for a front cover. So there are ways around it, and you could, by the time you've added pockets and things on the back of this, it adds a little bit more sturdiness to it, and obviously by the time you've decorated the front up as well, that adds a little bit more sturdiness to it. Now you might find this size a little bit cumbersome, so I'm going to make a slightly smaller width-wise journal, but I'm going to keep the height the same, but I'm still going to use the 8x8 paper pads, and again this will add that extra little bit of substance to the paper to give it a little bit more sturdiness. So let's make a start. So the first thing to remember is that one of these is going to be the back cover, so it's going to be that way on. Alright, so that will be the front, and if we flip it over, that's going to be the back. Now the reason why I point this out is we're going to crease or put a score line down at 1 inches to create the fold for the spine. If I had them both round this way, then you will end up putting the score line on this side, when in actual fact it wants to be on this side, because that will be flipped over. Alright, so put that in there, and I'm going to do the 1 inch to create the spine. Whilst I'm here, I'm also going to score it at 5.5 inches, because I'm going to fold that bit underneath to form a pocket. So remembering that we're scoring on the back side of this paper, we're going to do 1 inch to form the spine and 5.5 inches to form a pocket. So I'm now going to fold and burnish those. And then this one wants to be folded this way on. And then with this piece, fold it that way and open it back out, and then fold this one over this way to be able to form the pocket. So my pages now need to measure the whole of that there. My pages need to be cut to, that's 5.5, so I'm going to cut them. Let me make a note. So I'm going to make the page 5 3/8 wide by, and the height can be the same, so that should be 8 inches, correct, by 8 inches. Now the nice thing about the Japanese bookbinding is that you can put single individual sheets in here. So it means that some of your leftover papers that are, you know, they're just single sheets, you can gather all those now together and put them in. You could put book pages in here, you could make it into a photo album, you could use black cardstock in it, but we need several layers, and I'm going to add 10 to 15 sheets of paper. So I'm going to go off and cut my paper down to size, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. So I've cut my papers, and I've cut these to 5 3/8 by 8 inches, and I've used some coffee dyed paper, and I've used some coffee dyed lined paper. I've also found this sheet that I'd printed off that was going spare, so I've cut these out as well. Now these two I've cut slightly narrower, so as you can see, look, they're narrower than the coffee dyed papers, and that's fine. Now then, it's also fine if you cut them bigger than the actual width, like these are here. These are wider, because I can fold the edges of these in and tuck them in to make tuck spots or pockets again. So I'm going to add those to the collection as well. Now one of the things that you need to remember when you're choosing pages to go in this particular journal, you need to remember that 1 inch on this left hand side is going to form part of the spine. So if you've chosen a patterned paper to go in there, you need to again remember that 1 inch here on this left hand side is going to be lost to you. Okay, so let's just add these pieces in here, and then we're ready to start putting it together. So long as when you tap it along this, what will be the spine edge, they're all lined up, then you're okay, and also lined up top and bottom. So just tap to make sure that everything's lined up, and then you can add your front cover on top and your back cover on the back, making sure that that spine area is there on the back. So keep tapping until they're all nicely lined up, top, bottom and spine. It doesn't matter about this finished edge. And then I'm going to clip them all together to make sure that they don't move. Now I've done a set of instructions for you, which I'll put onto the Flickr account, and they're just my notes so that you can see exactly what I did. So if I just bring them in here. So I punched the holes in the covers in the pages as follows. From this top edge, 1 inch down, 3 inches, 5 inches and 7 inches. So let's get those marked and measured. Now it's a 1 inch wide spine, and I want it at about the 1/2 inch mark, because I've got the see-through ruler, I can find the 1/2 inch line on my ruler that way, and then I know that I'm half an inch in from this edge here. And I want to make a point at 1 inch, 3 inch, 5 inch, oh hang on, I marked that wrong, 5 inch and 7 inches. Fortunately I used my friction pen so I can rub that out. Woo, that's lucky. Now I'm going to be using my big bite, and I want the smallest hole, which is the 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to put all of those pages in there, and then if I tilt it for you to see, when that comes, I'm just going to take this down. So this part comes down, this little lever bit here, so that I can see that I've got it on top of that black pen mark. But I need to do it facing me, I'm afraid, so that I can see. Not so as you can see. Okay, so we're about there. Where's my pen mark? There. Okay. And again. Where's my pen mark gone? I've lost it. Oh, it's there. And one more at that point there. So I've now punched holes through the cover and through all the pages. Okay, so can you see that okay? Now I need to thread my needle up with some strong thread. So I bought myself a lovely bookbinding kit, and in fact in the Amazon link down below, which is an affiliate link, I've linked this bookbinding kit because it's got this lovely waxed thread in it, right, and which is quite nice and thick and sturdy. I want round about 5 to 6 times the length. 3, 4, 5, we'll do 6 just to be on the safe side. Lengths of thread, the same length as the actual journal itself, and then okay, so I'm going to unclip one of these just for a minute, because to be able to start this I need access to inside the actual pages. So I've numbered on here the holes as 4 and then 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so we're going to feed the needle through the centre pages and bring up at hole 1 through the pages through to the front of the cover. So what that means is that I'm going to open this up a little bit, and I'm going to find hole 1 and bring the needle and thread through that hole. So as you can see, look, it's here, and I'm pulling it through, and I'm going to leave sort of a 4 or 5 inch length of thread on the inside, because I'll use that at the end to knot all the threads together. Now I'm just going to clip that back together again so that the pages don't move. Okay, So this is the top edge, this is the bottom edge, and this is the spine. So the instructions say up at 1, which is what I've done. Wrap to the back around the spine and come back up through 1. So I'm wrapping it around the spine and I'm coming back up at hole number 1. And pull it in so that it's nice and firm. Go across the front to hole number 2. So across the front to hole number 2, put into wrap around spine. So I'm going to wrap it around my spine and put it back into again. Making sure it's nice and square. This first one I can tighten it up in a bit when I've got to the end, because I can pull the other end of the thread. Go across the back to hole number 3. So I'm going to go across the back and I'm going to come up at hole number 3. And then it says wrap around the spine. Come up through 3 again. So again, making sure that it's nice and firm, but we don't want to pull it that tight that it ends up ripping the pages. Then it says wrap around the bottom edge and come up through 3 again. So we're now going down this bottom edge, wrapping it around and coming up at 3 again. And again, just straighten that thread up and then pull it in tightly. Go across the front to number 2. So that was hole 1, this is hole 2. So I'm going across the front of the cover and going down at hole 2. It then says go across the back to 1 and up at 1. So I'm going across the back of 1 and up at 1. Then it says across the front to 4 and down at 4. Wrap around the spine and go down at 4. Then wrap around the top edge. So this was the top edge, so I'm going to wrap it around the top edge and I'm going to go down at 4 again. Make sure that it's all nice and squared off. And then it says go across back to number 1. So I'm completing the decoration, so I'm going across to 1. Now instead of putting it all the way through to the front, I've got to somehow slip it back into the centre of the pages. So I'm going to take the binder clips off and then find where I left that thread, which is there. Okay, there it is. So I'm going to pop the needle back in there into that hole, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide the needle through that hole to be able to come back up inside the pages. Right, so I've gone down into that hole, but I've slipped the needle inside the pages, and then I can pull that through, and then I can make sure that everything's nice and tight, and then I can knot that thread off. And I'm going to do that by going through that loop twice. and then when I tighten up that knot, it's going to sit right inside of that crease in there. So then I can clip off the threads so that they're not visible. And I've now got, this will flip open like that. That's all now nicely stitched. If I give you a close-up, so you can see the stitching on the front, and it looks the same on the back. And then I would stick this down or leave it as a flap that opens up, but if I stick it down I can put some cards in there and it gives this front cover a little bit of extra support. And then I've got these pages back here that are too long, so I can fold those back in and make pockets out of those if I want. And then again on the back cover I've got this section here that will fold in, and I'll attach that as a pocket on the back, and then that's the back. So let me just fold these pages in. And there you can see we have a lovely book that we've made, and then you can decorate this up to your heart's content. So I'm not going to show you how to decorate it because that's personal, that's up to you. So I will show you what I did on the front cover though. So I cut out some of the strips because there's some papers in. So on this front cover what I did was, there's a sheet in there that has got several like ribbon strips on there. So I cut those out. So as you can see here, look, I used the mushroom one here, and then I used a wider one here, and I just put them either side of this spine area. Now one of the things that you can do to just support that spine is you can get the magic Scotch tape so that when you put it down onto the paper it kind of disappears. And I've actually put a piece on the back here, and I've left it sort of loose on the corner so that you can hopefully see it, but it just gives the spine that little bit of support for when you're opening it. You're going to keep weakening that score line, so it just gives it a little bit of support. And then because I've glued these strips over the top, that would then cover that over. And then I used some of the cards that were in there, and there's some on the ribbon sheet as well. There's some little cards here, so I cut one of those out and stuck it on some papers and added photo corners, and then stuck it onto another couple of pieces of paper to just layer it up. And here on the corner I cut out a butterfly from a different Graphic 45 kit, and put some glossy accents on the top. Added another label here, put a number on it, and then added the brass corners onto the corners of the page to just help to give that some extra support too. So it's more of a writing kind of journal than it is adding loads of different pockets and bits and pieces, because the more you add to this it won't stay flat. So as a closure I would probably wrap around some seam binding. So you'll no doubt see this in a future video, but I basically wanted to come by to show you today how to do the Japanese binding, but also to motivate you to actually use up some of your Graphic 45 papers, because they are lovely and it is such a shame to see them sat on a shelf and not being used, because I doubt very much if you get them out and just go, oh look pretty, and then put it back on the shelf. You just leave it there. Once it's on the shelf it stays there. So if you're unsure of the stitch, print off the instructions from my Flickr account. You don't have to have a Flickr account to be able to access it and print it off, and then just practice on a piece of card where you've punched 4 holes out, and then you can be sure then that you can understand my instructions and follow it through to be able to then make this lovely, neat little book. Thanks for joining me again today, and I hope that it does motivate you to go and give this a go. See you in the next video. Bye for now.